Day 11 of the YNW Melly trial is officially over, and trial will not resume now until July 10th. However, the YNW Melly trial ended with concerning evidence against Melly. Here's what you need to know. YNW Juvy's mother would take the stand today. Her job was to clarify which of the individuals was her son during the surveillance footage of them leaving the recording studio.
Can you state your name, your full legal name for the jury?
Leon Phillips.
Okay. And are you related to one of the victims in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother.
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Positive 21915. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
Allegedly, YNW Juvy's father, so her husband, was the one supposed to be taking the stand today, just to clarify who is in the video clip. However, he was no longer allowed to be a witness due to what he posted on social media just a week ago. We would see a report of, the father of YNW Juvy explained why he believes YNW Melly is responsible for this crime.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to, they act like they didn't have take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind that something's not right.
As YNW Juvy's father took his frustration to social media after YNW Melly's reaction to a certain piece of evidence in the courtroom. He didn't like how YNW Melly was smirking and reacting to this piece of evidence. As in the report, it states, YNW Melly's reaction when a firearm expert tells the judge he didn't bring the firearm because he has no idea what item was used for this crime.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what firearm was used.
Okay. Do you have a...
YNW Juvy's father did not appreciate the smirky reaction by YNW Melly, which is obviously very understandable. However, YNW Melly's smirky reactions would end up disappearing fast, as during the recent court hearing, we would hear a report of forensic expert in the YNW Melly case explains how he determined it was not a drive-by.
Assignment, which is to determine if this is a drive-by. And my determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. The at a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
Okay, a lot of information in that answer, so let's break it down a little bit. You mentioned a So I'm gonna zoom in on site F.
The forensic expert is a 20-year-old veteran in his field, and he also has all of the accolades to prove it. After hearing what he shared, it makes sense why the prosecution left him to be one of their last witnesses/experts for the stand, as while he was presenting to the jury how YNW Melly is likely the one to be guilty here, YNW Melly's reaction was allegedly very concerning. He looked very stressed out in the courtroom, some say maybe even a tear in his eye, as the next piece of evidence he shared was even more concerning. As the report would go on to state, YNW Melly is accused of being the one using the firearm in this situation. Sergeant Williams, who said there was an item used 3 times inside of the Jeep, including 17 times outside of the car.
Number, you said 17 outside the car. How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that killed Christopher Thomas, where did that come from?
Driver's side back seat.
Okay. Is it possible for there to have been 2 inside that car?
No.
Why not?
There is no time.
We would then even see the rap lawyer speak on this situation.
You see what the experts are doing for the prosecution, and what's interesting to me is what the defense is doing when they cross-examine these experts, which is they're essentially highlighting the prosecution's opinion. Rather than try to pick apart holes and say, what about this, what about that? They're saying, oh, this is what you're saying, right? That's a fact? Okay, and they're knocking them down. And they're pinning them down. They're saying, okay, I'm going to hold you to this. This is your opinion. You think you know for a fact that came after this person was bet. You think you know for a fact that these came from not a drive-by because of the trajectory, and I know bet. And so what you're going to see, what I assume, because what is the defense doing? Well, I assume they have experts who they believe are a lot more credible, who have testified a lot more times in cases, who have a lot more research and credibility based on their experience and history in the field, and those experts are going to come on and take the stand, and those experts are going to poke the holes and say, you can't possibly know when this in relation to that. You can't possibly know how. We'll see. But that's what seems like it's setting up for the defense's experts to come in.
With Sergeant Williams making YNW Melly look extremely guilty and practically the one who had to have done this crime, this is where it got very weird inside of the courtroom. It was time for YNW Melly's lawyers to ask Sergeant Williams questions, as the prosecution no longer needed to. The first question YNW Melly's lawyer asks Sergeant Williams is a clever way of practically snitching on YNW Bortlen. You need to hear this.
And you are aware that the person that claimed it was a drug is Cortland Henry?
I believe so. I don't know who said that it was a drive-by. I was just asked to say if it was a drive-by.
Okay. And you're aware that when Cortland Henry made this statement that this gentleman was nowhere around, right?
I wasn't part of the initial investigation,
okay.
So I don't know if that was included in their Miramar's investigation with that.
Okay, but what you are saying is whoever claimed was lying.
Was incorrect.
With Melly looking extremely guilty to the jury, Melly's lawyer's first thing is to make YNW Bortlen look like the guilty one, making it very public to the jury once again. YNW Bortlen lied to the feds, and he lied about what happened. This isn't even the first time Melly's lawyers are practically pinning this on Bortlen either, as in another report it shared, YNW Bortlen had powder residue on his hands and a change of clothing when he dropped off Sakchaser and Juvy to the hospital. YNW Bortlen and YNW Melly were the only 2 men in the vehicle with them, including a video of YNW Melly's lawyer telling the jury once again Bortlen lied.
Demon's lies, those were his lies. Cortland Henry shows up at Memorial Hospital, Miramar,
You don't see him sitting there, but where you will see him sitting is in the driver's seat of a car with two bodies, car riddled with bullets. And when he shows up with a change of clothing, change of shirt, powder residue on his hands, evidencing that he had discharged a firearm. And he lies. He lies about where the incident occurred. He lies about how it occurred. And he lies about not having a phone. I think it was Miss Bradley herself who said, everybody has a phone in his pocket. Not Cortland Henry. There were 3 phones.
He revealed YNW Bortlen lied to the feds when the feds were asking him what happened to Sakchaser and Juvy when he drove them to the hospital. But he also revealed Bortlen brought a change of clothing to a recording studio at 4 in the morning, almost as if he knew something was going to happen inside of the vehicle. The interview of Bortlen lying then was shared to the jury as well by Melly's lawyers.
And I'm driving, ducking for my life, trying to make sure I don't get hit. And you telling me you telling me about some shit. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. I'm driving. I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. You know what I'm saying? What I'm gonna be worried about? You know what I'm saying?
I know it's not for you to worry about.
Shit crazy, bro.
But if you tell me it happened there's got to be some evidence there. There's going to be broken glass, just like there's broken glass over here from when you guys open the doors and stuff like that. Okay, there's going to be broken glass over there when the windows got out. There's going to be casings from the people at your car. Okay, there's going to be evidence over there. Okay, right now there's nothing. I kind of think I know what happened because I got information.
With all of this happening on the first day of trial, everyone was confused and wondering, was that YNW Melly's lawyer basically snitching on Bortlen? The rap lawyer would step in and confirm.
And we have an absolute shell being dropped by the defense, a mic drop moment. The lead attorney on Melly's defense team telling the jury that Cortland Henry lied to police when he showed up at Memorial Hospital that morning. He lied about what happened. He lied about not having a phone on him. That Cortland Henry, this is according to Melly's attorney, that Cortland Henry showed up at that hospital with a change of clothes on, and that Cortland Henry showed up at that hospital with powder residue on his hands.
YNW Bortlen's name wouldn't be done here getting brought up either, as later on in the trial, we would hear even more evidence of Bortlen having firearm residue on his hands. We would see a report of forensic scientists that covered the passings in the YNW Melly trial says co-defendant YNW Bortlen tested positive for firearm residue.
So the right hand of Cortland Henry contained 0 particles characteristic of hot residue and 2 component particles, and the left hand contained 1 particle characteristic of hot residue and 1 2-component particle.
Okay. And can you explain to us what that means?
Basically, overall, there was hot residue present on the hands.
If it was the prosecution revealing all of this evidence on YNW Bortlen, it would be pretty normal, but the fact that it is Melly's lawyers is making it pretty strange. However, all the way up till day 10 and 11 of the YNW Melly trial, Melly seemed to be winning, and he actually looked very innocent. As in the trial, we would see a report of, judge in YNW Melly trial ruled that undercover detective Danny Polo has to remove his mask for the remainder of the testimony. This is the same Danny Polo who stated this about YNW Melly just earlier on in the trial when wearing a mask.
They would quickly get checked. That happened to those 2 kids. I don't know how old they are. Those two guys that were claiming money, the Island Boys, with the fun haircut.
Okay.
Yeah, they were claiming to be members of, which is a set of, and they quickly got checked by almost every that could find them on social media. They got pinned, and they then had to recant and apologize.
Did you find any evidence whatsoever of any recanting or apologizing by Mr. Demmons in the records that you reviewed?
There's no recanting, there's no apologizing, there's no one calling out Mr. Demmons for being a fake.
That same man now had to remove his mask inside of the courtroom, as when YNW Melly was reacting to him revealing his face, it almost seemed as if Melly knew who this man was.
Yes, sir. You can take off your mask.
Yes, sir.
Over. State's objection, Your Honor, based on the previous issues.
Jury entering.
Shortly after then, without even realizing, this Danny Polo man just made YNW Melly look innocent for this day, even though he is a prosecution witness. This is meaning he is supposed to make Melly look guilty, not innocent.
Now, Melly's defense is now entering into cross-examination of Danny Polo. And what Danny is admitting on the stand, now Danny Polo had admitted that YNW Melly was actually being recruited by 2 different sets. And based off of the text message thread between the different individuals trying to recruit Melly, Melly was not replying. Melly stated weeks later that he was so busy doing radio interviews and shows that he just didn't have time to reply. And if you go back and read the text messages, those recruiters were basically begging Melly to reply back. And he didn't. Because Melly was an up-and-coming rapper who had a ton of money and ambition, and any of these different groups would love to have him under their roster. Because Melly wasn't interested in being a he was being labeled as somebody who was false flagging. It's possible that it was Shine that did the drive, all because Melly didn't want to be a part of their group.
As with every prosecution witness that took the stand to make YNW Melly look guilty, they all ended up doing the opposite. An FBI agent even took the stand. This FBI agent specializes in cell phone data research. As the report would go on to state, YNW Melly's lawyer questions FBI agent that did analysis on Melly's phone at the time of the crime.
Based on the information, you can't really tell the court precisely which locations these phones are following, can you?
One of the limitations of cellular analysis is that you can only say a general area where the device would be at a given time.
All right. So even with the general analysis, all of the stuff that we've gone through for about 4 or 5 hours, at the end of the day, you can never give an exact location.
True.
And could you tell if somebody was walking around a car with the phone? Would you be able to tell that?
No.
So it'd be your testimony that this phone, 9807, could be from here to here, correct?
Yes.
And what was the distance?
While he did share some important information, it wasn't until the next topic of conversation where things would get interesting. A DNA specialist then took the stand. His job is to go over DNA research on items that were found at the crime scene, including items that were found inside of the Jeep that the crime allegedly happened in. The report goes on to state, DNA analyst confirms YNW Melly's DNA was not found on multiple items that are recovered at the crime scene.
So going to item number 22, the swab from the Gucci sandals. We're able to compare the profile from Mr. Demons as opposed to the profile developed from those sandals.
I did, and he was excluded.
The stain on the front of the t-shirt, item number 23. We're able to compare Mr. Demons' profile to that.
I did a comparison, and he was again excluded.
What about item number 24, the cutting of the stain of the rear of the t-shirt?
After comparisons were done, he was excluded.
Okay, then on item number 25, the swab of stain from the Air Jordans.
Again, an exclusion.
Going on to item number 26, the swab from the yellow jacket.
An exclusion as well.
And in terms of the item number 27 and 28, the swabs of the Gatorade bottles. What were the results on that?
Those were both exclusions.
However, YNW Melly's DNA was found on the outside car door handle, which is obvious as we saw him get into the vehicle on surveillance.
Excuse me, you're able to see? Yes? All right.
And this is exactly where the prosecution made YNW Melly look extremely innocent for quite some time, as just before the DNA specialist took the stand, the prosecution revealed that YNW Melly was picked up by a rapper named Fredo Bang after the crime was committed.
And Chris Thomas are. So what you're also going to find out is while Mr. Devins is out there on the side of the road, 4 in the morning, 4:42 specifically, he sends a drop pin, digital homing beacon, to his current location to one of his friends, Frederick Givens. Frederick Givens is also involved in the music industry, and he asked to be picked up. Frederick Givens then, about 11 minutes later, is sent another drop pin where Mr. Devins has moved a couple of meters. What you're going to find out as well, though, is these digital leashes, they have more than just phone calls.
However, with his DNA not showing up on items inside of the Jeep is an incredible win for YNW Melly, as all YNW Melly's lawyers need to do when it is their turn for the defense is state that YNW Melly was picked up by Fredo Bang before the crime happened, which answers why there's no DNA of him inside of the car. Now, Melly and his lawyers know this because this is actually how they reacted during the first recess after hearing the news.
As you look where reflect the jury, step down, counsel remain, all with the defendant, and witness. Yes, counsel, I'm sorry. I just figured it was easier if we just let the jury go.
Understood.
Makes sense. Your Honor, may we have this discussion just in case there needs to be some supplementation testimony outside the presence of the
Sure.
As for the last week until today and very recently, it was all fun and games for Melly in the trial. Lots of laughs are now turning into tears. As even just last week in the trial, it started with a report of YNW Melly prayed in court this morning before trial. Then, during the first recess of that day, more unusual activities would be done by Melly, as videos would begin going viral of Melly acting strange. As this would then even lead into the next recess where YNW Melly is seen doing weird head movements and flexing a diamond grill in court. At that time, just 1 week ago, YNW Melly was unbothered. He was looking extremely innocent, just as his music manager 100K Track would happen almost 2 years ago, where he stated Melly has great defenses on his side.
He built a real great solid team away from just being innocent because he wouldn't do such a crime. He prepared himself and got a proper, defense. Their job is to handle themselves in trial, not on social media. You guys are taking it that way. If they say they got DNA in a car, I'm just gonna tell you Melly DNA was found in the car. You're gonna think, yeah, his DNA was found in the car the day of the, oh, he jumped in a car and his DNA was in the car, he did it. Okay, but you're not gonna put the fact that this was his car for 6-7 months on those documents and dockets and just automatically be like, yo, he's fried. You don't even know what the defense is. You don't even know what the rebuttal is. You don't even know why that situation occurred. You hear ballistics flying, you don't know what the defense is. You hear this, you hear that, you get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna be honest.
The defenses that 100K Track was referring to was the motives the prosecutors wanted to use. These motives are not even allowed to be used during the trial, such as this clip of YNW Melly's mom calling out Sakchaser just prior to the incident.
Show me text messages from Sakchaser, all her friends, and all these people like he's about this life. But I'm saying, like, who you ever out at? What you ever did? You couldn't even take charge. If you don't sit your down and don't ever come for me, because my credentials is real. It ain't even a joke. So don't ever try to come for me, because I don't even play them type of games. Like, what you got that I ain't got? Oh, you your little. I got big. On the end of the day, Melly is my child.